Hi everybody, welcome to Evening TV. I'm Evening Ransom, and today I want to talk about something that was prompted from watching another YouTube video, and this person was talking about how they had been triangulated, how they had been um, gone up to bat for the narcissist before they understood really who he was, and felt really responsible because they had really gone to bat for getting him a lot more visitation with his kids and that kind of thing, and kind of and minimizing his ex-wife's child support and all this kind of stuff. And then later she realized that she had basically helped the bad guy, and she described the stories and why she thought that she was doing the right thing, and it made perfect sense. It really would make a lot of sense for just about anybody. I thought about my own situation, and I haven't ever done that. I haven't ever. But what I definitely had done is I had gone up to bat for my. Well, I had never done anything in court or anything like that, but I had gone up to bat for him with my own family, and early on, and I had gone up to bat for him with his family, and I had gone up to bat for him with a friend. And the family stuff was real early on, but the friend thing was all part of the discard. The way that he used me as part of the discard, and so and it was it and the way that it happened was all part of the dysfunction going on, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Is is in this when there's a triangulation kind of thing going on, what I realized about it was that what what the narcissist is doing is they're getting everybody to do their dirty work for them, and kind of floating under the looking acting innocent and whatever, while everyone else is going at it, right? Everyone else becomes flying monkeys and everybody else, and it creates all this kind of chaos. And then I thought about my own situation, all the different triangles that I've been in, and all the different ways that people that my sociopathic ex had triangulated people with me, and actually how narcissists in my family had triangulated me also, like my brother with his wife, my parents with my brother and I, um, my ex-husband with my family, my ex-husband with friends, you know. And what I wanted to say about that was that what's really important is to sort of pull back and take a look at it, because what you'll notice is that the only relationships that were triangulatable were sick, dysfunctional relationships. Because any healthy relationship, I mean, for instance, my my brother and my parents. Okay, they sided with my ex-husband, but my brother had never taken my side. Like there've been numerous events over time, and across the board, he never took my side. And in fact, he was even taking his. He was even acting out against me with a woman that he was basically on the verge of getting a divorce from. Um, so there was definitely something there, and what I realized when I look at my own situation is that there was a narrative going on that everyone was agreeing to, like, this is outwardly what they're saying, but what really is happening is that the narcissist has triggered something in that particular individual. So in fact, everyone is everyone is turning on you for one reason, they're all saying, but they're each doing it for their own reasons. So let me show you how this works. So basically, what the narcissist is doing, or the sociopath, whatever the abuser is doing, what the abuser is doing is they're coming in and they're exposing everyone's wounds. All the people that he's going to get to be flying monkeys and enablers, right? Now, the thing to keep in mind is these are already vulnerable people. Okay, healthy people aren't going to do this. He's not going to go for healthy people. This is only going to be people that are vulnerable to it. People that he can see that there is a potential for this, that this is going to work. Well, this is why it was so devastating in my case, because almost everyone was vulnerable. So he goes to my parents and he tells them one thing. He tells them that I'm having flashbacks to my childhood and that I'm talking about these bad things that happened, and was not true, but he knew it would trigger them. So they came out talking about, they all came out acting like I was, accused me of being a drug addict, right? Or crazy, one or the other. But this was really what he triggered in them, right? With my brother, he's a complicated one. I think that in his case, it could even be something so buried, so subconscious, that it goes back to like right when I was born. I almost think it could be that much. But it could also be resentment about, maybe just that for the same reason my parents are, basically that I was not going along with the narrative. It just could be that much. That I was, stealing him of our identity, our agreed thing, that our story we were telling, as though it was a choice of mine. I don't know. It could. A lot of these people, my brother, my parents, my ex-husband, it could be just seeing them. It could be just seeing the truth and being resented because I knew the truth. And that meant I had to go. I had to go because I could see the truth, and that was, they weren't ready to go there. They didn't want to deal with that, and so I had to go. With my sister-in-law, it could be seriously was something as I totally believe that it had to do with the fact that she's overweight, and I'm not, but it's even more complicated than that. Her sister and her mother are also thin, but it's safer to be mad at me. It's safer to hate me. So I could be the one that she could hate collectively, so she didn't have to hate her own sister and her mother, especially her sister. Her mother was an alcoholic, so focusing on this alleged drug addiction for me was better than that, or focusing on my son's drug addiction was, or the fact that, you're that overweight and focusing on anybody's addiction but your own is, tempting. So my point of it is that triangulation, basically what it is a test. It's basically taking the temperature of your family, taking the temperature of your relationships. How healthy are your relationships? Because if triangulation works, it's wrong to just focus on the abuser, the one who started the triangulation, because for it to work, there has to be an agreement to suspend disbelief. Because a person who's healthy, a person who has your back, is going to say, convince me, right? If someone comes to me and said to me about my brother that he's this and that, especially someone who's divorcing them, I would be like, yeah, I don't think so. I'd be like, you'd have to convince me. You have to come up with some evidence. I would certainly have to see something myself. If you have a whole bunch of people that are turning their backs on you and no one has ever seen any witness of anything, They're purely going on what they're being told by someone who's leaving you. That's telling. Now, of course, in my case, it was also compelling because my immediate family, my brother and my parents, had also, they were the first. They were the first. That's why he cornered them first. So that was compelling to people. Plus the fact that I'd also had this heart attack, and so there had to be, people were trying to come up with explanations. That's the other thing, is that if there is unexplainable things, people want to know things. People want to know that they're doing it right, that they've played their cards right, and so they're going to be safe. So it upsets everyone to think that someone just out of the blue who's doing everything right, who's not abusing drugs, who's not who's not overweight, who's not doing anything, could just all of a sudden have a heart attack at 30 years old and almost die. It's equally disturbing to think that someone who looks like they have everything going for them, that their husband could just up and leave. I mean, what was really happening was just too terrifying for people. And it was just too, people didn't like that. Nobody liked to think that we're all that vulnerable. So blaming the victim was very, very tempting because they wanted to think I had done something to make it happen. Therefore, they were safe because they were doing it right. Right? And that's very, very tempting. And so you look across the board, and the vast majority of the people did leave. There were just 3 friends that didn't, and all they did was they wanted to talk to me, you know. But the ones that just up and left, they left without talking to me about it. They left without ever witnessing anything. They left, and so what that tells me is not that my ex, I mean, he wasn't doing me any favors, that's for sure, but it's not just him. He's not to blame for all that. These are people that didn't have my back. Those were sick, dysfunctional relationships to begin with, because people who have your back will say, that doesn't sound right. Convince me. You know what I mean? And here's the other thing too, is the people in my situation, they had known me a minimum of about 12 years and a maximum of all my life. So these were not people that had just met me. I mean, these were people that knew me, that had years and years and years of knowledge of me, in and out, and never once saw me do anything remotely like I was being accused of doing. All these things that we're talking about, they're taking place in relationships that are already sick. So that's sort of something to look at, because we can kind of act like some of these things are normal, flying monkeys, and that it's all the narcissist's fault. The flying monkeys, the triangulation, all this stuff. But that's endemic of a very sick whole community. Because in healthy communities with functioning people and functioning, committed relationships or loyal relationships, this stuff wouldn't happen. This stuff wouldn't work. And so it's sad and it's really tragic, but it take a peek at your whole system, the whole system, and see, because you could also, if this hasn't happened to you yet, you could be really surprised. I certainly was. I did not think in a million years that the people that turned their backs on me ever would. I thought they were loyal friends, and I wouldn't have turned my backs on them. So I wouldn't have turned my backs on any of these people. And I assumed that was mutual, and it wasn't. It wasn't. Why is that? Is that because I'm just not likable? I'm not lovable? No, it's not. It's because I think people are more afraid than I am, maybe. I think people are walking around with a lot of fears, a lot of thoughts and things that I don't necessarily, people care a lot more about what other people think than I do, I think. And also, sadly, I think it's because a lot of people are apathetic. I think apathy is, and laziness is just a real growing evil in our society, and it really lends itself to narcissistic abuse, because you almost always need a certain element of apathy and laziness for it to work, because generally speaking, they are asking you to do the least. They're asking you to take the path of least resistance. That's usually why they're so powerful and they get such a good response, is because when you come across, you have the third party. There's the abuser, there's you, and the abuser basically is saying to them, um, you might see some things, but we're gonna act like it's normal. You can just pretend like it's normal, pretend you don't see anything, and we'll just go on as though nothing's happening. Okay. Whereas the abuser is gonna say, uh, "Don't you see what they're doing? I need your help. How come you're not offended on my behalf? How come you're not standing up for me?" There's a lot of reasons why people do that. It's like people don't want to get involved. People don't have enough compassion, don't have enough empathy anymore. Maybe that's part. I think we need to work on our compassion, and so I think that's part of it. Um, and also we don't feel responsible. If in my situation, what was really really devastating was that people assumed that my husband and my parents and my brother were responsible, and they were. I can't argue with that. They were. Okay, so they were responsible, but they weren't coming through for me. And so then what? You know, it was the rare person that stepped up, very rare person, and it was better off for me when I came into a new group of people that didn't even know about it. Then it was a little bit better. But I mean, where people want to step in and help out a single mom who's struggling who doesn't have a family, who's disabled, and because that's what I was. I was a struggling single mom who had disabilities and didn't have any money, didn't have any medical insurance, didn't have a home, didn't have been basically um, I walked off with all the problems, so just like the old scapegoat myth. The whole that thing. That's exactly how it went. Was that's the so that's the whole thing with how this kind of triangulation stuff works. Is these kind of people really need a scapegoat? They need to project onto somebody, and the sad thing is that the consequences can be very dire. I mean, these could be huge, huge stakes, and the catalyst could be something super petty, like the jealousy over weight, or it could even be something subconscious that even they don't even understand. Just a trigger, something triggers you about this person, and something comes out in you that's cruelty. But what I see in all of it is I see that compassion is the cure. Compassion is what's missing. Compassion is what's missing in all these relationships, and it's not just the narcissist. It's all the people involved, and it's important to pay attention to. We talk a lot about psychopaths and sociopaths, and we talk about empaths, but we don't talk that often about apathy. And apathy is definitely an important part of the whole system. It makes the whole system work. And if you look at a really compelling example, look at the Holocaust. Now that's a big, historical example of something really terrible. But if you took it and you have the basically the three pieces there, and it was a whole lot of it was absolutely necessary for a whole lot of people to just look away. It was very that if a whole lot of people hadn't just looked away, it couldn't have happened. And so that's that's the thing to look out for in going forward. Take a look at your own community, and also keep an eye out if you're seeing something else happen in somebody in some other relationship, I'm not saying stick your nose into things, but we can't, we can't do nothing. We can't do nothing. That's part of why I'm even here. It's exactly that. It's like, I figured I can't go through this, learn all this stuff, and have all this lessons and stuff that I didn't know years ago, and then just keep it to myself. Well, they just get sicker and sicker, and I don't help anybody. No, I figured I could at least share what I know, so maybe I could help somebody. All right. So anyway, so take a peek at that, the triangulation thing, and I guess the topic of it is that the triangle and the role of apathy, the role of the third party, and then also the enabler role, the fact that sometimes it's not just apathy. Sometimes there is actually an aggressiveness, a resentment, a something going on with the other person too, and something that's being triggered. And in essence, for triangles to work and for there to be flying monkeys and all that, there's something amiss. There's something amiss. That's not going to happen. And please write in the comments below. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you have an instance where you had a very open and loving and communicative relationship that somehow ended up getting triangled, or someone became a flying monkey and you lost your relationship, but it was actually a really healthy, good relationship prior to the narcissist or the abuser messing with it. I have some that are pretty close, but you have to look at even if the person is themselves maybe a closet alcoholic, and they start triggering something about substance abuse here, and that triggers something in them. I'm talking about any kind of issue. There's some kind of issue going on for that person to be susceptible to that happening. They're vulnerable to it happening because it doesn't happen to everybody. And like I was saying, I think I might have stopped myself in the middle of it. The three that didn't, the three friends of mine that were not triangulatable, were ones that were at the time, happy and secure in their relationships. They didn't have any abuse issues or substance abuse issues. They didn't have any secrets. They didn't have any secrets. They didn't have any things they were hiding from others or themselves, and they were the ones that went, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I need to talk to her about that. I don't get it. And they wanted to at least dig a little bit. It's not normal for a lifelong friend to just say, okay, good enough, yeah, and just not try and disprove it. It's like that. That's what's compelling. It's like we usually tend to want to see the best in people, especially our friends, and we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so if that's not happening, there's something going on. All right, you guys, thanks a lot, and I will talk with you soon. Write some comments below and give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet already, please subscribe. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.